Have you ever wondered why, despite having lived through decades of life's greatest lessons, there are still moments that catch you completely off guard? Moments when you pause and think to yourself, how did I not see this coming? It's a feeling that sneaks up on many men after 60, especially when it comes to their most private and personal habits, habits they thought were harmless or even beneficial, but which, in truth, might be silently doing more harm than good. I remember sitting across from Thomas, a retired Navy officer, just a few months ago. At 68, his handshake was still firm, his posture upright with the kind of discipline only years of military service could instill. But as we settled into a quieter conversation, his voice softened, almost as if admitting a secret he'd locked away for years. "Doc," he said, eyes darting toward the floor, "I think I've been doing it wrong, and I think it's catching up with me." That moment stuck with me because Thomas isn't alone. In fact, many older men navigate their golden years unaware of the hidden pitfalls surrounding something as natural and personal as self-pleasure. And let's be clear, this isn't about shame or guilt. This is about knowledge. It's about understanding the ways our bodies change after 60 and how the habits we formed in our younger years may not serve us the same way now. When you were in your 20s or 30s, the body was resilient, endlessly forgiving. Late nights, bad posture, a little too much indulgence, somehow, it bounced back. But as the years roll on, that same body begins to ask for a different kind of care, a more thoughtful approach. And when it comes to masturbation, the changes aren't just surface level, they reach deep into the heart of your physical health, emotional well-being, and even your spiritual peace. Thomas had fallen into a routine so familiar he barely gave it a second thought. Whenever the quiet of the house felt a little too heavy or the nights stretched too long, he turned to self-pleasure, thinking it was a harmless way to relax. But what he didn't realize was that the way he was doing it, hurried, disconnected, purely out of habit, was slowly creating more harm than comfort. His sleep became restless, his mood more irritable, and his energy levels unpredictable. He chalked it up to aging, as most men do. But the truth was far more nuanced. The body, after 60, responds differently to stimulation. Nerves are more sensitive, the cardiovascular system works harder to support arousal, and the hormonal landscape shifts dramatically. Ignoring these changes is like continuing to drive a classic car at full throttle without ever checking the oil or the brakes. Eventually, something gives out. And here's where the first silent mistake reveals itself: mindless, habitual self-pleasure. What once was a spontaneous, joyful act becomes a mechanical routine, performed without intention, without presence. And the body notices. Instead of bringing relaxation, it leaves behind tension. Instead of fostering emotional release, it creates a subtle undercurrent of frustration. That's because the body isn't just a machine responding to physical touch, it's a delicate interplay of mind, emotion, and sensation. For Thomas, the act had become so disconnected from genuine feeling that it no longer soothed his restless nights. It left him feeling more alone, more disconnected from himself, and increasingly unsure about his health. He began to question if there was something wrong with him physically, or worse, if his heart could handle the strain. And that leads to another quiet but dangerous mistake: ignoring the signals of physical strain. After 60, the body needs you to listen more carefully. A racing heart, shortness of breath, or lingering fatigue after self-pleasure aren't just signs of aging, they're the body's way of asking for a gentler, more mindful approach. Yet so many men ignore these warnings, pushing through discomfort out of habit, trying to reclaim the intensity of their younger years, without realizing the damage they're slowly inflicting. Thomas admitted that there were times his chest felt tight afterward, his breathing shallow, but he dismissed it, telling himself it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was his body crying out for a different kind of attention, one rooted in care rather than routine. Then there's the mental toll, often invisible but just as profound. When self-pleasure becomes a substitute for emotional intimacy, when it fills the gaps left by loneliness and unspoken grief, it can quietly reinforce isolation rather than heal it. Thomas shared how, after those moments alone, he often felt emptier than before. Not because there was anything wrong with the act itself, but because it had become a way to avoid facing the deeper emotional truths he hadn't dared confront since his wife passed years ago. That's the third hidden mistake: using self-pleasure as a shield against emotional vulnerability. In youth, physical release can feel like the perfect solution to stress or sadness. But after 60, the emotional landscape changes. The losses feel heavier. The regrets a little sharper. And while self-pleasure can still be a beautiful, life-affirming act, it cannot replace genuine emotional connection, especially the connection you build with yourself when you sit quietly with your feelings instead of running from them. So, what happened to Thomas? With time, patience, and a willingness to learn, he began to shift his approach. He slowed down. He treated those moments not as a chore to be rushed through, but as a chance to reconnect with his own body. He started listening to how his heart responded, how his breathing settled when he moved more gently, how his mind felt clearer when he allowed himself to truly be present. And slowly, everything began to change. His sleep improved. His mood lifted. And most importantly, he stopped feeling as though his own body was betraying him. Because it wasn't. It was simply asking for a kind of care he hadn't known how to give. As we move into the next part of this journey, we'll explore the other mistakes many men make without realizing it, habits that might seem harmless but could be quietly eroding not just physical health, but the very sense of vitality and joy that makes life after 60 worth living. Stay with me. The most powerful insights are still to come, and they just might change the way you look at yourself and your health forever. As we continue this conversation, I want you to imagine something that's probably closer to your reality than you'd like to admit. You're sitting alone late at night. The house is still. The television hums quietly in the background, maybe playing a show you're not even really watching. And in that stillness, there's a certain emptiness, a restlessness that you can't quite put into words. Without thinking much of it, you turn to a familiar habit, something that's brought comfort in the past. But afterward, instead of feeling relief or relaxation, you feel nothing. Maybe even worse than nothing. A lingering sense of regret or discomfort settles over you, and you wonder why. That's the silent trap so many older men fall into. It's not that the act of self-pleasure is wrong or harmful. In fact, when approached with awareness and care, it can be one of the most healing and life-affirming experiences. The problem lies in the habits we carry into it, the unconscious routines, the old behaviors from a younger man's body applied to a body that now needs something entirely different. One of the most overlooked mistakes I see, and one that carries profound consequences, is the lack of mindfulness during these moments. So many men treat their own bodies as though they're separate from themselves, something to be managed or tolerated rather than cherished and understood. The act becomes mechanical, a task to check off rather than a moment of connection. And in doing so, they lose sight of the very thing their hearts and bodies are asking for: presence. When you're not fully present, when your mind is elsewhere and your body is simply going through the motions, you rob yourself of the deeper benefits of intimacy with yourself. Your nervous system doesn't relax. Your heart doesn't experience the gentle rhythm of calm. And your mind stays stuck in its restless cycle of thoughts and worries. I remember speaking with Samuel, a quiet, thoughtful man in his early 70s. He'd spent most of his life working long hours as a carpenter, his hands rough but steady, his eyes always focused on the next project. But when he retired, the projects stopped, and with them, the sense of purpose that had kept him moving forward. Alone in the quiet of his home, he fell into a pattern of mindless self-pleasure, not out of desire, but out of habit, a way to pass the long, empty hours. And yet, after each moment, he felt more disconnected than before. His body ached in ways it hadn't before, his sleep grew shallow, and his mind became clouded with old regrets and unspoken fears. He told me once, his voice barely above a whisper, "It's like I'm chasing something I can't quite reach. And every time I try, it just feels further away." What Samuel didn't realize, and what so many don't, is that the act of self-pleasure isn't just about physical release. It's a powerful opportunity for emotional healing, for reconnecting with the parts of yourself you've spent years ignoring. But only if you're willing to slow down, to be present, and to treat your own body with the kind of care and reverence it deserves. Another critical mistake many men make is ignoring the importance of breath. It sounds simple, even trivial, but your breath is the bridge between your body and your mind. When you rush through the act, holding your breath or breathing shallowly, you activate your body's stress response. Your heart races, your muscles tense, and instead of relaxation, you're left with lingering tension. But when you breathe deeply, slowly, with intention, everything changes. Your heart rate steadies. Your mind quiets. Your body relaxes into the moment rather than resisting it. It becomes a form of meditation, a way to bring yourself fully into the here and now, releasing not just physical tension but the emotional burdens you've been carrying for far too long. And let's not overlook the physical consequences of neglecting this mindful approach. Without proper awareness, it's easy to fall into patterns that can lead to long-term health concerns, overstimulation that leads to nerve sensitivity, excessive pressure that strains delicate tissues, and repeated tension that affects everything from your pelvic floor health to your cardiovascular system. After 60, the body requires a gentler touch, a slower pace, and a deeper understanding of how to nurture rather than deplete. It's not about chasing the intensity of youth, but about embracing the richness and depth that comes with experience, wisdom, and presence. Samuel eventually learned this. With time and patience, he began to change his approach. He slowed down. He turned off the background noise and created a space that felt peaceful and safe. He paid attention to his breathing, allowing each inhale to ground him and each exhale to release whatever tension he'd been carrying. And in doing so, he found something he hadn't felt in years, a quiet joy, a sense of being fully alive and at peace in his own skin. His sleep improved. His mood lifted. And he began to see his days differently, not as long stretches of emptiness, but as opportunities to reconnect with himself and the world around him. He even picked up woodworking again, not to keep busy, but simply for the joy of creating something beautiful with his own hands. And that's the lesson, isn't it? That the most profound transformations don't come from drastic changes or grand gestures. They come from the smallest decisions, to slow down, to breathe, to be present, to treat yourself with the same kindness you've so readily offered others. So, I ask you now, gently and without judgment, when was the last time you truly took the time to listen to your body? To sit quietly with yourself, to breathe deeply, and to experience intimacy not as a rushed habit but as a sacred, healing moment? As we move into the final part of this conversation, I'll share how embracing this new approach can not only improve your health and emotional well-being but open the door to a life filled with renewed purpose, deeper joy, and a sense of connection you may have thought was lost forever. Stay with me. The journey isn't over. In fact, the most beautiful part may be just around the corner. We've come a long way in this conversation, and if you're still here with me, that tells me something very important. You're ready. Ready to not just hear these words but to live them. Ready to step into a new season of life where you're no longer defined by the habits of your past or the quiet regrets you've carried for years. You're ready to embrace a life of deeper connection with yourself, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. And that brings us to the final, and perhaps most powerful, shift that takes place when you begin to approach self-pleasure with care, mindfulness, and respect for the man you've become. This isn't just about breaking free from harmful habits. It's about creating a new relationship with yourself, one built on acceptance, kindness, and even joy. I want you to think back to when you were a young man. Remember how your desires felt so immediate, so urgent? Back then, it was all about release, about chasing that moment as quickly and intensely as possible. But time, as it always does, has a way of changing things. And with those changes comes a beautiful new possibility, one that too few men realize is available to them. It's the possibility of experiencing not just fleeting pleasure, but lasting satisfaction. Not just physical release, but emotional peace. And that begins with letting go of the old ideas about what intimacy must look like and embracing what it can be, a slow, tender, mindful experience that leaves you feeling more connected, more alive, and more at peace than ever before. One of the greatest misunderstandings about this phase of life is that it's a time of decline, of giving things up, of quietly accepting that the best days are behind you. But I'm here to tell you, that belief is a lie. This can be a time of incredible renewal if you're willing to see it for what it is, a chance to know yourself more deeply than you ever have before. Your body may have changed, but it still longs to be treated with care. Your heart may have weathered storms, but it still beats with hope. And your spirit, your spirit is still as vibrant and full of life as it ever was. You haven't outlived your worth. You haven't passed the point of joy. In fact, you're standing right at the edge of it. Take a deep breath right now. Feel the air fill your lungs. That's life reminding you, it's not done with you yet. When you approach self-pleasure with this understanding, you stop chasing after some long-lost version of yourself. You begin to honor the man you are today. You take your time. You listen to your body. You explore not just for the sake of release but for the sake of understanding, of reconnecting with the simple truth that you are still here, still capable of giving and receiving comfort, still deserving of tenderness, even from yourself. And something remarkable happens when you embrace this new way of being. Your days feel lighter. Your nights grow more restful. That undercurrent of anxiety, the restlessness that used to keep you up at night, starts to fade. You find yourself smiling more often, laughing a little easier, standing a little taller. And it's not just you who notices. Those around you feel the difference. Your children, your friends, even the strangers you pass on your morning walk, they see it in your eyes, hear it in your voice. That quiet confidence, that sense of peace, it radiates from within. This is what happens when you treat your own needs as worthy, when you give yourself permission to experience joy without guilt, without apology. And in doing so, you don't just heal old wounds, you write a new chapter of your life, one filled with purpose, connection, and yes, even passion. So I ask you, right now, are you ready to turn that page? Are you ready to stop viewing these moments of intimacy as something shameful or harmful and start seeing them as a sacred part of living fully and well? It begins with one small decision. Tonight, or tomorrow, whenever the moment feels right, I want you to try something different. Slow down. Create space for yourself. Breathe deeply. Feel every sensation not as something to be rushed through but as something to savor, to cherish. Let it be a reminder that you're still alive, still capable of experiencing the richness of life, one beautiful moment at a time. And if this conversation has touched something deep within you, if it's reminded you of what's possible even now, then I invite you to stay connected. These are the kinds of conversations we need more of, honest, compassionate, and real. Conversations that remind us all that life doesn't end at 60 or 70 or even 80. In many ways, it's just beginning. So before we part, I'm going to ask you for a small but powerful favor. If this message has brought you comfort or clarity, take a moment to like this video. It helps others, men just like you, find their way to these words when they need them most. And share your thoughts in the comments. You may not realize it, but your story could be the very thing that helps another man take his first step toward healing and rediscovery. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to share, and I'd be honored to walk alongside you on this journey toward a fuller, richer life. Until we meet again, take care of your heart, be gentle with your body, and never forget, you are worthy of every beautiful, peaceful, and joyful moment this life still has to offer. And believe me, my friend, the best may be yet to come.